Why the Trinity cannot be one God. After researching for years and finding out that Philo of Alexandria was a Jewish Greek philosopher of the first century that started putting his ideas and concepts of a triune God using the Old Testament scriptures by using an allegorical method. After studying all of this and finding out that it was Philo who gave us the Trinity doctrine that became the Trinity of modern day Catholics and Protestants. I also found out that through Philo, the Ante-Nicene fathers, which are called the Catholic fathers, were the ones that took up his philosophy and put it into their doctrine, into their dogma, into their theology. This is how we got the Trinity. But I want to speak about the multiple problems that are found with this doctrine. Not because it comes from God, because it is man-made, invented by philosophers, and then so-called Christian philosophers in the church. If you're wanting to learn more, or if you're a strong believer in the Trinity, you should know that there are many problems that you have to fix, which have not been fixed, and even to this very day are being debated by different people that are Trinitarian. If God is one spirit, God is one supreme being, how can he be three persons? This is a contradiction, because the Bible teaches us that the God of the scriptures is one God, one Lord, one supreme being. And he is spirit. John 4 tells us that God is a spirit. So how can he be three persons? Number 2, it is impossible to separate God into three persons or whatever persons you want to separate him to. The history of the church tells us that the Trinity was rejected by the majority of Christians in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th centuries because it violated the rule of faith, which is that God is one and he cannot be divided. That was the reason that the majority of Christians rejected the Trinity doctrine. And Catholics ignored the teaching of the one God, supreme being, and they went and followed Greek philosophy, which is very religious and teaches a plurality of gods. This is what really happened. They switched from the monotheism of the Bible to the polytheism of Greek philosophy, but they don't call it polytheism, they call it monotheism to deceive the followers. Number 3, they say that each person of the Trinity is not a part of the Trinity. No, they say that each person is distinct and each person is God. So that is a very strong contradiction to the one God of the Bible. If God is three distinct persons, then he's no longer one supreme being. Number 4, to make them distinct, you must provide an origin for each one. Now, in history, the Ante-Nicene fathers made a big mistake because they started saying that the origin of the Son was that he was the wisdom of Proverbs 8:22. And they taught that this is how the Son came to existence or was brought forth in eternity, because wisdom was always with God, so wisdom is the Son of God. But here's the problem. Some of the fathers started using the concept of wisdom, Proverbs 8:22, and were applying it to the Holy Spirit, such as Theophilus and Irenaeus. They applied the teaching of wisdom in Proverbs 8:22 to the Holy Spirit. Now the problem with the Son being the wisdom or the Holy Spirit being wisdom is that the wisdom of Proverbs 8:22 is feminine. And in chapter 7 it says, say unto wisdom, thou art my sister. So that's a problem there. If wisdom in Proverbs 8 is feminine, how can it be Jesus? And how can it be the Holy Spirit? The Holy Spirit is not feminine. Now, in history shows us that the Gnostics did teach that the Holy Spirit was wisdom and that the Holy Spirit was a mother, was a woman. This is, historically, this is what happened. Look at all the problems that can come about by allegorizing the attributes of God and making them into persons. Number 5, the Son is eternally begotten according to Trinitarians. They teach that, first they say that he was begotten, and then they say he was, eternally begotten. If that's the case with the Son, what is the case with the Holy Spirit? The Holy Spirit, I know that they use the word proceeding, but they use John 15:26. But this is not a verse that teaches the origin of the Holy Spirit. This is a verse that teaches that after the ministry of the Son, the ministry of the Holy Spirit will come forth. That's all it's teaching, proceedeth from the Father. Is not teaching the origin of the Holy Spirit, which the Catholic fathers wrongly taught as being the origin. This is a huge mistake. So if the Son is eternally begotten and the Spirit is eternally proceeding, that doesn't make sense, because they also say that they are coequal and coeternal. But at the same time, they teach that there was a beginning to the Son and there was a beginning to the Spirit. How do I know this? Look at the writings of Theophilus of Antioch. He taught that the Son and the Holy Spirit were emitted at the same time. There are many problems with the Trinity doctrine. If the Son, number 6, if the Son is eternally begotten, how can the Son be equal to the Father? There is an ongoing debate right now among Trinitarians themselves that the relationship between the Father and the Son is not necessarily equal, because the Son is subordinate to the Father. And so they're debating that, is the second person of the Trinity, the Son, for eternity he's been the Son. So if he's the Son, he's subordinate, he's under the Father. And then what about the Holy Spirit? What position, number 7, what position does the Holy Spirit hold in the Trinity? If the Son is subordinate to the Father, the Holy Spirit subordinate to the Father and the Son, according to Catholics. But if they're coequal and coeternal, that cannot be. Problems. Number 8, if the persons are coequal, coeternal, they must of necessity be 3 gods, or a family of gods. And yes, Trinitarian apologists admit this when pressed. They admit that the Trinity is not one supreme being. No, it is a unit or compound unity of divine persons, making it a family. A family. So the Trinity really is a teaching of a family of gods. It's a plural teaching, and it contradicts the very Old Testament and New Testament. Number 9, 2 of the persons were brought forth from the Father. They did not come on their own. They didn't exist of their own. The Son was begotten, from all ages, and the Holy Spirit proceeded, which means they came from the Father. This is a problem in itself, because this does not teach that God has eternally existed as the Trinity. And then number 10, which God are you closer to? Are you closer to the Father, or to the Son, or to the Holy Spirit? Who do you pray to? Do you pray to the Father? You pray to the Son? You pray to the Holy Spirit? Some people say, well, I just pray to God in general and so forth. But if you do that, you're not recognizing the distinction of each person. And is it right for you not to recognize each person of the Trinity? Just saying God instead of praying to the Father and then praying to the Son and the Holy Spirit? Big problem. Who do you pray to? And if you pray to all 3, you're not making a distinction. So there you are disrespecting God, the Trinity.